Ilia Topuria versus Arman Sarukian needs to be next for the lightweight title. No discussions. Arman Sarukian, as we all predicted, pretty much just tore through Dan Hooker in 2 rounds, completely destroyed him, banged him up, battered up his head with the elbows. Like, Dan Hooker once again looked unrecognizable and with a face full of damage after this fight. And Arman Sarukian submits him in the second round. Arman Sarukian also displayed an incredible amount of top pressure and getting out of different kinds of holds that Dan Hooker was trying to set up. Like, Sarukian, one of the highlights of the night that you're seeing constantly circulate on the media is of him basically doing this kind of alligator roll out of the position to be able to get on top of Dan Hooker. Just really tactical and technical types of wrestling and grappling displayed by Arman Sarukian. There was no ring rust whatsoever after almost 2 years of this guy being inactive and not fighting. And listen, Arman Sarukian, I'm not going to lie, I would be kind of nervous a little bit for that fight for Topuria. I really would. Once again, Arman Sarukian has established himself clearly. He was the number one contender already, and he just went out there and has reestablished himself as it. He defended his ranking and just showed why he should have never gone through this fight in the first place. But whatever, the UFC needed to prove a point because he fumbled the Islam Makhachev fight. So Arman Sarukian has successfully defended his ranking versus Dan Hooker. And Arman Sarukian is once again in a position where he could be the toughest challenge to the lightweight champion. And I think it's always been that. I think Arman Sarukian clearly is one of the best. After Islam Makhachev, Arman Sarukian was the best lightweight in this division. He was the best on the planet. And we were robbed of that fight. We really were. So Arman Sarukian, again, is in this position as the number one contender where he stands to be the greatest test for the champion in Ilia Topuria, who's 17-0, undefeated on this crazy win streak, knockout artist. Well, win streak. I mean, the guy's undefeated. I don't know why I said win streak, but yeah, Topuria coming off 3 straight wins versus absolute legends. And Sarukian needs to be the next guy up. He's saying he's ready in January. That would be a crazy turnaround, but after seeing Sarukian gone for so long and him wanting to get back in the good standings of the UFC, this is the right way to do it. This is the right way to kick it off in January, the first Paramount deal, to have Sarukian versus Topuria. I mean, what would a fight like that mean for Topuria's legacy, especially to beat an Arman Sarukian in his prime, who is just an absolute stud? Besides, being maybe the son of a billionaire and having all the money in the world, this guy actually, he does this. He fights. He has one of the craziest physiques in the UFC, and it's not just all for show. He literally is the number one ranked lightweight fighter. He took this sport serious, and he's at, again, the cusp of a title shot. So Sarukian, just a phenomenal display of dominance all around. I predicted Dan Hooker to not make it past 2 rounds with Arman Sarukian, and that's what happened. Sarukian was striking with Dan Hooker, some ground control, groundwork. Dan Hooker had maybe him in a little bit of a hold, but once again, Sarukian gets out of it. Remember the moment where Charles Oliveira, almost had Sarukian choked, and Sarukian was fighting for his life, and you thought he was about to tap, and he got out of that. Maybe a short saved it. I don't know, but this was exactly what Arman Sarukian needed to do to really just get back into the good graces of the UFC, because of how he got the injury, and maybe he really did. He made weight as the backup to Charles Oliveira versus Topuria, and now he once again made weight. He weighed in at 156 for this fight, and he went in there and he looked great. He looked like a stud, really. For Hooker, this was just too much for him too soon. I get it. He was off 3 straight wins. His most recent being Gamrot back in 305, but he really should have fought Justin Gaethje to really kind of get himself higher up in the rankings. Sarukian needed someone to dance with. Dan Hooker did have this opportunity to actually jump to number 1 if he would have beaten Sarukian, but Dan Hooker's always fun. He's always an entertaining fighter. He's probably never going to get at the belt, but he's just a fun fighter to have in this sport. He's just always game to fight with whoever, to trade shots. He's a sick fighter, and he brings violence. And I would still love to see that Justin Gaethje fight one day, because as we know, Gaethje's been crying like a baby, saying that he will retire if he doesn't get a title shot. Absolutely not, Justin. There's no way, especially after this performance, you're getting any kind of title shot. even if Arman didn't win, like, Patties is probably going to be that person to fight Ilia in January, but that's my point. We can't be sitting through an Ilia Topuria to Paddy Pimblett fight when Arman Tsarukyan just told us through his own mouth that he is available and ready to turn around in January. It doesn't look like he took a lot of damage at all. This fight is way more hype than a Paddy Pimblett fight with Topuria, honestly, because this is truly the number one contender versus the undefeated and a champion with the aura of invincibility right now. And Ilia Topuria is trying to become one of the GOATs of the sport. Like, Topuria is already talking about jumping up to 170 and fighting Makhachev for triple belt status or at the White House. But this needs to happen first. Topuria needs to defend at least once before getting that Islam fight. He needs to defend. And I honestly think Islam should defend too. We're going to get to welterweight in a minute with the co-main event and what should happen next there. But this is the perfect first lightweight title defense for Ilia Topuria. I think it stands way more in the test of time for his legacy. But again, I'm not going to lie. I would be nervous about this. For Topuria, I'm always going to rock with Topuria. And I want to see him fight only the most dangerous and best guys so that it's even more hype for him when he then goes into that super fight with Islam or whatever. I just want to see Topuria become the GOAT of the sport because I'm a Topuria fan. But so that's why I really want to see the Arman Tsarukyan fight, but I am nervous because Tsarukyan, he looks really dangerous. He looks really good. Now Dan Hooker ain't no, like, he's not even a Charles Oliveira. Completely different fighting styles, and Charles Oliveira took it all the rounds with Arman. Topuria ain't no Dan Hooker. Topuria's got way more power. Topuria, we still need to see him get really tested when it comes to a wrestler, grappler dominant like Arman Tsarukyan. He didn't really get tested with Charles. I just need to see it, bro. Book this fight. Book this fight in January. UFC, if you don't, that's a big fumble right there. It's the perfect fight to open up the Paramount deal January 2026. Arman Tsarukyan's calling for it. Topuria just went on Twitter and went off at Arman Tsarukyan. Showed a video of him, like, I guess them meeting up and looked like all smiles. I don't think Topuria slapped him. I think Topuria is trying to play it off like he slapped him. But he had his hand, like, behind his head, like, whatever, like, showing respect, whatever. Yeah. So that was your main event of Qatar. This was a crazy stacked card, by the way. The first ever card in Qatar was a banger. Absolute banger. And yeah, Tsarukyan looking like a real problem, as always. He's got to be next for the title. No excuses. Next up on the co-main event, you just love to see this. Belal Muhammed in his second straight loss after his massive win streak, and then beats Leon, dominates him, embarrasses him in the home crowd to get the belt, loses to Jack Della Maddalena, and then gets... It was a close fight. Not going to say that Ian Machado Garry thoroughly dominated all around, but overall, Ian Garry did, I think, win that fight. It was a great strikers fight on the feet. Belal Muhammed, definitely accumulated more damage than Garry by the end of the fight, as it showed, but yeah, Belal Forget the name Muhammad is what I'm trying to say. Ian Garry, this is this is really big for him, after the Shavkat Rakhmonov loss, he first of all took Shavkat Rakhmonov to a decision. Was the first fighter to survive Shavkat Rakhmonov. Before that fight, Shavkat had a 100% finish rate, so that's pretty impressive. Almost submitted him. Then goes in there and beats Carlos Prates, which that one ages better and better because Carlos Prates has some of the most freakish power in this division, one of the best strikers in welterweight. And Ian Garry outstruck Carlos Prates, who since then has violently knocked out his last two opponents. And then goes in there and beats Belal Muhammed, who's one fight off having the belt. And whether I like or hate Belal Muhammed, right now he is a top 5 welterweight. So Ian Garry beats him. Ian Garry really now has a boosted resume on who he has taken in the UFC and has really established himself as one of the best in this division. The future, 17-1. Prates, Belal. Okay, before that, he even had a win over Michael Venom Page. I think he was the only person to beat Michael Venom Page in the UFC. That win ages better and better. Well, actually, Page moved up to middleweight now, so he beat Cannonier and he beat Shara. That was at welterweight. Jeff Neal, Neil Magny. Those are the classic, gatekeepers, old veteran heads in the division. But since then, very respectable wins and performances by Ian Garry. He's always game. You got to respect it. I wouldn't be mad if Islam defended the title versus Ian Garry, but this is where it gets so confusing. after these last 2 weekends, the welterweight division is just chaotic in what could be. Like, who gets that title shot? Michael Morales has a case. Prates has a case. Ian Garry has a case. You still have Shavkat Rakhmonov in the mix, who was supposed to fight Belal for that belt. And I think probably would have beaten him. The Boogeyman of division, 18-0, whatever he is, or 19-0. Shavkat versus Islam is a sick fight. That was always already Shavkat after he came off the win versus like Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. Like, yo, if Islam ever goes up to welterweight, bro, this could be a crazy fight. Or Hamzat versus Shavkat. Like, Shavkat's just like a Terminator. But at the same time, he needs one more fight. He can't just step in after taking a year off. We haven't seen him since December. And then just step back into a title shot. He needs another fight. Jack Della Maddalena coming off the belts. He's still now considered the number one guy. So he's going to get another fight to possibly reestablish himself for the title. Kamaru Usman, dude, it's so crazy how stacked welterweight is. Like, what do you do? Like, but if Sean Brady, if he would have beaten Michael Morales, I would say him 100%, no doubts, but Sean Brady lost. So I think Garry might have the best case. I don't want to see Prates because Prates would just get destroyed by Islam. I think it's a waste. Like, it'd be one of the most one-sided fights. I think just for the hell of it, like, put Garry for the title shot versus Islam and do Morales versus Prates in the meantime. Match up Shavkat with either Usman or Jack Della Maddalena. And then you're forgetting about Joaquin Buckley, who still could be somewhat in this picture, but he also needs to bounce back nicely. Welterweight's the best division by far. It's the most exciting division. And yeah, Ian Garry's at the top now with a really strong case to get that next title shot. He technically shouldn't have to fight again to get that title shot, but he might just have to because of how compressed this division is and just stacked and loaded with talent and a bunch of guys that can make a case. Garry versus Morales is a very intriguing fight, but Morales is huge. And with the power that Morales has been displaying on these guys, I feel like if he gets his hands on Garry, because if Prates almost finished Garry, I feel like Morales could finish Garry. I would take Morales in a Morales versus Ian Garry fight, honestly. So, Ian Garry impressive, and so happy that Belal took the downfall. Tons of finishes on this card all around and all within like the first round. Volkan Ozdemir finished Alonzo Menefield. Good bounce back win for him in the light heavyweight division. Not much to say on that actually. Miratek Orbay, the Mongolian from Kazakhstan, whatever the heck. Interesting fight. Whole week people were saying, how's this fight going to go? Jack Hermanson coming down from middleweight to welterweight and Miratek Orbay coming up from lightweight. So a lightweight versus a middleweight at welterweight. But Miratek Orbay goes in there, finishes Jack Hermanson. That's Jack Hermanson's second straight KO loss. I think Jack Hermanson just needs to call it a career. There's not much else this guy has to offer to the sport, honestly, anymore. I don't enjoy seeing him fight. I think I honestly want to see just Jack Hermanson leave the sport and retire. Like, just a wasted matchup, honestly, for a lot of people. I don't care to see this guy fight. But Orbay, on the other hand, super exciting. He's on a roll now. He really is on a roll. I mean, he lost from Becky in that crazy fight back in 308. But since then, submitted Musayev. Now he has a KO TKO win over Hermanson. Orbay, as long as he continue to make the weight, now that he's in this new weight class, dude is 15-2. Like, he's a fun fighter, bro. Orbay, super fun fighter. Can't wait. Always fun to see him on a card. Becoming a fan favorite. Did not see this coming, to be honest. And I didn't even react to this because when I made my video, my fight week video, Sergey Spivak was still the matchup. One second, I just take a sip of my coffee. Yeah, Walter Cortez Acosta versus Shamil Gaziev. Acosta, wow. Salsa Boy steps in on, 2 days notice? Wherever he was, flown into Qatar to take on Shamil Gaziev, the fan favorite, who could be that next big prospect to take on the heavyweight champion in Tom Aspinall. But what happens? Waldo Cortez Acosta goes in there and knocks out Shamil Gaziev. Like, in the Sergey Spivak matchup, I think we all could agree that Shamil Gaziev was probably going to get it done. But now Waldo Cortez Acosta comes in on barely any notice, just getting in there, then it gets interesting. And I'll be honest, I think I might have still picked Shamil Gaziev because I don't know. I guess I thought Shamil Gaziev had this like unspoken aura about him, just like being the fan favorite that he is. Look at that physique, like Shamil Gaziev, like. But Cortez Acosta, this has been savage performances from him. In his last fight versus Sergey Pavlovich, got eye poked, and then still finished the fight. And that was a week after Tom Aspinall had the eye poke and quit. I shouldn't say that because I literally said that Tom Aspinall didn't quit. But, like, it kind of looked a lot worse for Tom Aspinall when Cortez Acosta finished the fight. I would say he had more to gain from finishing that fight than a Tom Aspinall did versus a Ciryl for a championship, especially in the first round. But just whatever. Acosta, this is what that was like his 5th fight in 2025. He's trying to go for a record. He wants to fight in December. Oh, his last fight wasn't even. He lost to Pavlovich. Okay, so that was the eye poke. He KO'd Delija, which was Tom Aspinall's teammate. My bad for that mix-up, but yeah, like beat Spivak this year, lost to Pavlovich, but then Delija and then Gaziev. So he bounced back in a big way. It's not like he won every fight this year. Wow. Costa really making some noise now as a future top 5 heavyweight, honestly. With his fast hands, the power he's been displaying. Surprised that Shamil Gaziev got it done. And then we finally see a Dagestani lose too from the Khabib camp. Not all of these guys are untouchable. Kyoji Haraguchi in his return to the UFC all these years later. Finally, the long-awaited return and the UFC, I guess, was persistent on making this matchup because it was originally booked for Baku. Kyoji goes in there in the final round, gets a head kick or something like on Tagir, gets him phased, and then finishes him on the ground with a submission. Like, unbelievable by Kyoji Haraguchi. Let me just plug in my charger here. Great statement, comeback win for him. I mean, listen, the UFC could make something out of Kyoji as a second run for possibly becoming one of these top-ranked flyweights. The flyweight division's wide open right now. There's not a lot of competition for Pantoja at the moment. Although there are some rumors that Muhammad Mokaev may be coming back to the UFC. He needs to, honestly. Like, I think Muhammad Mokaev has done enough. Like, he really apologized. I know the matchmakers are frustrated with him, but at the end of the day, like, the dude is undefeated. He just head kicked, KO'd someone for the belt at that promotion, and he could really be the only flyweight on this planet that could give Pantoja a run for his money. So, Kyoji Haraguchi, let's see what he can do in this UFC. It's a good start, beating one of Khabib's boys in Tagir Ulanbekov. Luke Riley, a new prospect on the scene, making a splash in his debut. I saw the highlights. I didn't watch the card until like around the main card, but Luke Riley wasn't looking good in that first round. Then goes into the second round, KOs Bogdan Grad. He's like the next version of Paddy Pimblett. These guys all have like miniature versions of themselves. Like you have all the biggest stars like Pimblett, Topuria, and then like Sean O'Malley, and now they have all like their like apprentices like stepping in there and coming to the UFC. So it's cool to see, but also could be a really big star in the featherweight. He definitely has that star potential, but we'll see. Don't want to get too hype on him yet because I just got hyped on Malcolm Wellmaker. What happened to Malcolm Wellmaker? He got checked by a guy who made 48 hours notice in Ethan Ewing. But Luke Riley, good start. It's a good win. Nicholas Dalby, did not see this coming. Coming off that Randy Brown KO, goes in there and gets the decision split win versus Sagid Isaac Maiev. Also from the Khabib camp, a training partner of Islam. I think Islam was cornering this guy. Scary looking dude, but yeah, Nicholas Dalby gets the win. So I guess he's staying around because maybe the UFC would have cut him if he probably lost this fight. I don't know. Alex Perez versus Asim Abayev. Asim Abayev continues to bounce back nicely since his getting eye poke cheating loss by Manel Kape. He got done dirty at that fight, but yeah, Asim Abayev submits, nasty submission choke in round 3 on Alex Perez. Nasty. Just the way he was kind of like a standing choke. Standing submission. And then Abdul Rahman Yakiayev went in there in 33 seconds. Similar to like his Dana White Contender Series fight. He just blitzed Rafael Cerqueira and was doing some quick strikes. Then boom, head kick, gets Cerqueira to the ground, follows it up with a submission. This guy looks dangerous. This guy looks really dangerous the way he's handling fights, just blitzing fighters right off the gate and getting it done with some vicious striking. But again, Rafael Cerqueira, I'm so awful at saying these last names and everything, but this guy's like one of the biggest gatekeepers in the light heavyweight division. I mean, honestly, how many times has this guy fought? And he's like lost so many times. He lost his last 4 fights. This guy, dude, he hasn't won a single fight in the UFC yet. Oh my goodness. He's getting all these dangerous guys, and Ibo Aslan, Bukowskis. This guy's career is like almost pretty much over. Damn. But yeah, crazy debut. So many fun like fighters on this card. Middle Eastern fighters that could be big in a few years from now. You'll be hearing these names very soon. Topuria. This was the coming out party for Alexandre Topuria to really show that he could be legit. For real. The older brother of Ilia Topuria, is he... he has ways to go still to really capture the... He's not going to be probably as big as Ilia Topuria. Like, Ilia Topuria is Ilia Topuria. And Alexandre is starting later in his UFC career, but comes in to the UFC, beats Kobe Thickness. Probably wants to be a little more active than he was, but gets the fight versus Begzat Al-Makan. Great display of wrestling. Threw Begzat to the ground. Had a moment where he knocked him down in the 3rd round. Has that signature patented Topuria fight style with the boxing. He looked good. He looked really good and looked like, yeah, the kind of skills and techniques that him and his brother train on. 7-1 now. Could make some noise at bantamweight. Like, Alexandre Topuria and the Topuria brothers, they doing it. Like, I don't know. But it's a good start for the UFC career. Having 2 wins over Begzat and Colby Thickness, who's an Australian prospect. So impressive performance by Alexandre Topuria. And he's entering the prime years and his peak years now in UFC. I mean, how old is Topuria, Ilia? Something, I don't know. But, yeah, and then Ismail Nardiev had a serious KO over Ryan Loder. Nurul Aliyev gets the decision versus Shamrock, another one of Patty's training partners. And then this random fight with like a veteran Denzel Freeman getting the decision win. Overall, pretty crazy card with some great displays of fights. I mean, this was a 1st round finish. This fight wasn't really boring, you know. Topuria's brother getting a sick unanimous decision. 1st round finish. 3rd round submission. This fight was decent. 2nd round KO, TKO. Submission. 1st round KO, 1st round KO, 1st round KO. And then 2nd round submission. Like, this was one of the best fight nights, like, on paper ever. And ended up translating to being one of the best fight nights ever. Like, when you think about the amount of finishes on this card. But yeah, guys, we're approaching the end of the year. There's only 2 events left in UFC 323 in 2 weeks. And the last Apex card, which I might just do because it's Cop versus Roy Valence, the last Apex fight of the ESPN era. So thank you guys for checking in and appreciate if you could sub it up. Until next time.